Hey everyone, it's me Bailey and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing my November wrap up. So today is day 2 of Bookmas. So for day 2, I decided to do my November wrap up. So I'm just going to be going over all the books that I read in the month of November. So the first book that I read in November was In the Afterlife by Alexander Bracken. This is the third book in the Darkest Minds trilogy, and I ended up giving this book 3 stars. So this is the third book in a trilogy, so I can't really get into the details of this book, but basically this trilogy follows a girl named Ruby who has these powers, and she is living in this like dystopian world where children over the age of 8, I believe, start showing symptoms for having this like genetic mutation that gives them powers, and the adults are like really scared of these kids with powers, so they put them in these camps where the kids are basically forced to live, and they're not very good places, and Ruby ends up escaping, and it kind of goes from there in her adventures finding other people like her and things like that. Like I said, I gave this book 3 stars. I feel like the series overall is like a 3-star series, but this was just okay. I would recommend it for a like younger reader. I feel like it did hold up, especially like around 2012 when it was written. The next book that I read was Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim, and I ended up giving this book 4 stars. So this book follows our main girl Maya, and she is a seamstress, and it is frowned upon in this society for women to work or run a shop or anything like that, but her father is the town tailor, and after her mother's death he falls into this like really deep depression, so she has to run his shop for him, and the emperor or king or whoever's in charge of this world is having this competition to design these dresses for his new bride, and her father is chosen to come to the palace to compete in this competition to be the next royal tailor. But her father has not sewn in years, and he's getting a little bit older, so Maya dresses up as a man to go to the palace to compete in her father's place, and this was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, like I said, I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really enjoyed the beginning of the book more than I would say the ending of the book, but it is a very fast-paced read, and if you're looking for like a fast-paced fantasy that's really easy to get into, then I would definitely recommend this book. The next book that I ended up reading was Caught Up by Liz Tomford, and this is the 3rd book in the Windy City series. This follows Kai, who is a single dad, and Miller, who is the daughter of the coach of Kai's baseball team, and Miller ends up becoming the nanny for Kai's son, and they end up falling in love. Miller is like this really famous chef, and she just isn't quite loving her job, so she ends up taking the summer off to go on the road with Kai and his son and be their nanny, and this was so fun. I love Liz Tomford's books. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. It's not my favorite in the series, but I am just so obsessed with the series. I love the series and would definitely recommend it for people who are fans of sports romance. The next book that I read was On Cloud 9 by Kels and Denise Stone, and I ended up giving this book 3.75 stars. This book follows Molly and Matthew, who were co-workers and friends, and they have to fake date because Molly's fiance has been cheating on her, and even though she knew that he was cheating on her because it was like an arranged type situation, Matthew decides to step in and get her out of this engagement and agree to marry her so that way she can get her trust fund, and they decide that they're going to split it so that way he can start his new business that he wants to start. And so that's pretty much what this book was. It's fake dating, forced proximity, co-workers, only one bed, and age gap. It's like a 10-year age gap, but it was pretty good. I still feel like the first book in the series, Water Under the Bridge, has been the best, but this was the 3rd book in the Parks and Benefit series. I don't know if I said that before, but I just really enjoyed the first one a little bit more than this third one. The next book that I ended up reading was Shudder by Ramona Emerson, and I gave this book 3 stars. This is a mystery book that follows this woman who is a crime scene photographer who can also see ghosts. So she can see ghosts, hear ghosts, talk to ghosts, and there is a ghost that has been murdered and she wants revenge, and so she has roped our main character into figuring out what happened to her so that way she can get the revenge that she wants. And this was just okay to me. I was expecting so much more out of this book than I got, but it was still an enjoyable read. It was still a very quick, fast-paced read. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was gonna be, but I still had a good time reading it, and I feel like I would recommend it. I just didn't personally love it myself. The next book that I ended up reading was The Plus One by Maisie Eddings, and I gave this book 4 stars. So this book is the 3rd book in the Brush with Love companion series that Maisie Eddings is writing, and this follows Jude, who is a doctor, and he is suffering from PTSD from working a job that is kind of similar to Doctors Without Borders. So he is a doctor in very high poverty areas and areas that have been affected by war, and so he's in like active war zones being a doctor. And so with this, he has suffered from PTSD, and we're also following Indira, who is a therapist, and she is needing a date to her brother's wedding. So her and Jude decide to fake date after she finds her boyfriend cheating on her, and they are like childhood rivals to lovers is the trope that's in this book. I feel like Maisie Eddings does a really good job of talking about mental illnesses in a way that is very gentle, and I just feel like she writes about them really well. And I feel like if you're someone who likes Abby Jimenez, you would like Maisie Eddings, because I feel like their writing styles are similar, and the topics that they talk about in their books, about how they can discuss hard topics, sad topics, but still make a amazing story and not make a sad book, and they're still happily ever after at the end. And I really like this one, so 4 stars for this. I definitely would recommend it if you are a romance reader. Then the next 5 books that I read were a part of a series, and that was the Vegas Aces, the Playbook series. And so I read all 5 books in the series, and this is a 5-book companion novel series that follows the same couple. So each book is pretty short. The first one was Fumbled, the second one was False Start, the third one was Fair Catch, the fourth one was Forward Progress, and the fifth one was Field Goal. And I gave the first book 3 stars, the second book 3 stars, the third book 2 stars, the fourth book 2.5 stars, and the fifth book 2 stars. So this is like a pretty, like I would say like an average 2.75 3-star series. This follows a guy named Travis, and he is needed to take care of his 10-year-old daughter that he has never met before. So 10 years ago, he got this woman pregnant. She had an affair. She got pregnant, had the baby, told him that she did not want him to have any contact with her. And then she and her husband end up dying, leaving this 10-year-old as an orphan, and has wrote in the will that she wants her biological father to become her guardian, which happens to be Travis. So then he goes to get her, brings her to him to live with him in Vegas while he is a NFL player. Then in comes Victoria, who is a reading teacher at the school that Harper, his daughter, ends up going to, and they form a connection, but it's kind of enemies to lovers, because so Travis ends up hitting on Victoria before he finds out about Harper's parents, and Victoria actually turns him down because she has a boyfriend at the time, and then eventually her and the boyfriend break up, and she sees Travis again at the school. Travis is upset because he doesn't handle rejection well because of some stuff that went on in his childhood with his parents. and so they form kind of like an enemies sort of relationship until eventually it all just kind of boils over, and you know. So, but yeah, I have been reading the Vegas Aces universe since January of this year. I read like 25 of the books in the series in January and really just fell into the rabbit hole that is the series, and I have just continued to read the series as Lisa Suzanne has been putting out more books, so I do see myself reading more books in the series as they come out. Next, I read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, and I gave this book 4 stars. So this follows Elsie, and she is a adjunct professor at like 3 colleges, and she is trying to get a tenured position at a university as a physicist so she can do work on some sort of crystal. She's like a theorist or something. And then in walks Jack, who wrote this article when he was like 18 and ends up discrediting her mentor, and so she just does not like Jack. But since Elsie is struggling for money with her adjunct professing jobs, she is also on this app where she can be a fake date for people who need it, and so she is actually fake dating Jack's brother. And this book was really good. I really enjoy Alia Hazelwood's writing. Sometimes I do feel like her books do kind of go over my head a little bit, but I did really enjoy the romance in this, and I liked this one better than Love on the Brain, but I still think that The Love Hypothesis is my favorite from Alia Hazelwood. But overall, I would recommend. The final book that I ended up reading in November was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So this book has been hyped up everywhere. I have been seeing it all over TikTok, all over the internet, and I wanted to know what the hype was. So I decided to finally pick it up, especially with all of the buzz around Iron Flame and things like that. So I wanted to see if I was going to enjoy this book or not. So I decided to pick it up, and I decided to give it 5 stars. So I gave this book 5 stars mostly for the vibes, because this was such a fun read. Was this the best written book I've ever read in my entire life? No. Was this the best plot ever? Maybe not, but I really enjoyed the vibes, really, and that's why I gave it 5 stars. This is not going to be my favorite book ever in the face of the planet, but the way that I felt when I was reading this, because I was having such a good time and I didn't want to put it down, I decided to just give it 5 stars. And I will be reading the next one. I've heard very mixed things about Iron Flame. I've heard a lot of people are really disappointed in this, but I'm just curious to see what I'm gonna think, especially with the way that it ended. I definitely want to read the next one. But if you don't know what this book is about, this book follows Violet, and she has been training her whole life to become a scribe, but her mother forces her to go into the writer's quadrant, which the writer's quadrant is basically a school to learn how to ride dragons, and this school is very deadly. Like half the class does not end up making it to graduation. They're in the school for 3 years, and so it's following Violet along her first year at this war college. Honestly, this was pretty good. I can see why people would not like this, but I also understand why people absolutely loved it. I fall into the category of really liking it and really enjoying myself while reading this, so I definitely would recommend it if you like fantasy romance. But those are all of the books that I read in November. I ended up reading 12 books, which was a lot more than I was expecting to read, so I'm really happy with that number. And yeah, so hopefully I can read just as many, if not more, in December, but if not, that's totally fine. All reading is good reading. So I would love to know in the comments if you have read any of these books or are planning on reading any of these books, what your thoughts are, what your ratings were. I would love to chat about them in the comments. And with that being said, that's gonna be all for today's video. If you guys like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content from me. I will have all of my social medias linked in the description, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.